Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is an IFBB Pro Bodybuilder. Today's guest is Siem Goossens. Siem, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks a lot, man. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. Happy to talk to you.
For sure, man. I'm excited to have you on. I actually saw you on Nick Strength and Power's YouTube channel just earlier this week, and I was like, you know what? I got to reach out to this guy. He got an awesome physique, and I really appreciate you taking some time, man, to chop it up with me. So the first question I like to ask all of my guests is, who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
It's tough, man, because there are a lot. I got a few favorite current bodybuilders and also a few favorite bodybuilders of all time. But to answer your question, my favorite bodybuilders of all time, I think Cutler is definitely up there. Really inspired me a lot always. Ronnie Coleman, of course. A lot of guys from the 90s, really. I was a big fan of that era. Kevin Roney, Flex Wheeler. Some of those. But if I have to choose, I think Cutler is probably my favorite. Yes.
Now,
of all time. And now,
go ahead.
No, go ahead. I want to say currently I have a few favorites also. I really like the physique of Hunter right now. That's one of my favorites. Rafael Brandao, I really like his physique too. Those are the two I watch the most, really. Regan Grimes also, really nice physique. I like the aesthetics, but I'm really a big fan of the open class bodybuilding.
Excellent. So I want to ask you, Siem, why is Jay Cutler your favorite bodybuilder of all time? Why is he the first one that you named off?
I don't know, probably also because of his personality, because I really admire the fact that he took so many second places after Ronnie, and he still kept going, and after that became one of the greatest of all time, and in some people's opinions maybe the greatest of all time. So and also I also follow his videos he did back then with the Eat Big and the train videos, and that was when I started lifting a little bit. And Jay Cutler was always the first guy I looked at and inspired to be like, also him as a personality, and also the way he carried himself, and such a I don't know, it always seems like he had such a great aura, such a great mentality about the sport. And I think that's what I find attractive about him, and also the physique, of course. But he was a mass monster, but it was still pretty, I think.
Perfect. So tell me, Siem, at what age did you start lifting weights, and then why did you start lifting weights at that age?
Kind of an unusual story, probably. I started lifting when I think I was 16 or 17 years old, pretty young. I was in high school, I think. They call it in America. Here it's built up a little different. But there were a few of my friends on my class that were going to the gym a little bit. And the gym was it wasn't really a gym. It was like a little basement with some of the guys at home, and his dad and his uncle had just fabricated all the equipment by themselves. They just welded it together, and it was really an old school vibe. And that's why I started. But I started because they were pushing me, really. Yeah, you have to come to the gym with us sometime, train with us. And at the time I was lazy, man. I wasn't doing nothing with sport. I was just typical teenager kid, smoking weed, riding my moped all day. I never thought I was wanted to go to the gym, but they pushed me, so I went with them. And after I started training, like 1 or 2 months, I was always muscular, even if I didn't do anything. So I always thought that, why should I go to the gym? Because I look like this and it's fine, because I think I have pretty good genetics. But once I started training, I started getting strong so fast and building my physique really fast that after 2 months, I thought, shit, maybe I really liked it, because people would give me compliments, and I started feeling better. I started seeing the difference in the mirror, and that's what kept me going. And it went further and further and further, and it escalated to me being a bodybuilder and doing this right now at the level I am at. To make it a quick story.
No, that's great. I love it. So I want to transition a little bit, Siem, into your backstory, into your childhood. So, we've got a lot of American listeners. So make sure you let us know kind of like, where you grew up, what your childhood was like. Talk about just some of the activities maybe that you were involved with. Talk about your parents' influence, any siblings. Just paint that picture of your childhood. up to about high school, and then we'll move on from there. Okay.
Yeah, that's all right. So I grew up in a really small town in Holland. It's actually close to Rotterdam. I think that's the biggest city near me. But the town I'm from is like really small, such a small community. A real, yeah, typical Dutch village. It is very boring, very quiet, and nothing happening really. My parents, they always supported me. I can say that for sure. The best parents anyone can have, I think. We weren't rich, not at all, not even close. But my parents worked really hard, and they gave us everything we needed always. So I had a great childhood. I always had the support from them. Just didn't matter what I wanted to be or wanted to do with my life, and I think that's how it should be as a parent, because you have to support your kid, of course. They always did that with me. So yeah, I think my childhood was nothing special. It was perfect the way they made me. I had everything I needed. I went to school, and yeah, up until high school, it was just having fun, typical teenage stuff, partying, and yeah, nothing about sports really. I wasn't really a sports person, but yeah, I was just living my life as a simple Dutch teenager was, I think, and yeah, nothing really crazy happened before that. It was all good. Yeah.
So over there in Holland, is soccer a pretty big sport? Was that any type of influence in your life or not?
Yeah, in terms of sports, soccer was really the most popular. It's the sport everybody does, but I never had anything with it. I was always, I don't think on purpose, but I always was against what everybody was doing. I didn't go with it. I was doing my own thing always, because everybody was going to soccer. Like my whole class, like every boy was playing soccer, and I was the only one that was saying, I don't like it. So I just didn't do it. I never let anybody talk me into doing it, because I didn't feel like it was something for me. I was kind of always doing my own thing, but in terms of sports, I wasn't really active. I was more focused always on just having fun. And I was really, it's because of Holland, everybody's smoking weed always, of course. So we were always getting high at maybe 14, 15, 16 years old, and hanging around with my friends. And those are all friends I now don't even see anymore. But at the time, it was all we did. Just go to school, have fun, and do whatever you like. And I'm very blessed to be with such a great household that my parents always let me do what I wanted, and they always supported me. And they always taught me that I had to work, of course. But I had to make money also. But then again, I didn't spend a lot of money really, because it was just doing simple stuff that didn't cost anything. There's not much to do in Holland. It's really I think if you come from a big city in America, you would find it just plain boring. It's just boring. There's nothing to do here really. And Amsterdam there is, of course, but I'm very far away from the big city where I grew up.
So tell me then, when you were kind of, once you kind of got into high school, you got a little bit older, what were your aspirations, or what were your dreams of, kind of when you got into adulthood and once you graduated high school? Was there something that you really wanted to pursue? And then once you graduate high school, did that happen, or did your life kind of go in a different direction once you were done with high school?
So I will pick up where I left off with where I started training and everything. So when I started training, I was still in high school. I think I was graduating. I think you guys graduate around 18, and we go at 16, and then you go to the how do you call it? Like a university or a school that's after high school. We go after 16, 17 already. So I started training when I was 17, and I was just getting my diploma, and I was really at the time such a lazy kid when I was doing nothing for school. I was way smarter, and I was way below my supposed level I should have been in school, because I wasn't doing anything for it. I didn't study, I didn't learn, I just wanted to have fun, and I thought school is cool, but I just wanted to move on. I wanted to go to work. And once I started training, I was right at the switch point of going to high school, and I was always doing how do you call it in English? Mechanics, engineering. I was doing that because in the school we were at, we had a lot of practical teaching, because it was pretty low, how do you say it, low level schooling, because I was doing nothing for it. So after that, I decided, I wanted to move on, but I wanted to do some school, but I didn't want to go to full-time work because I was like, shit, I have to go go and work for 50 hours a week. I wasn't seeing the fun in that. So I thought I'm going to study further. So I actually got my degree in engineering because that's the only thing I knew. So I thought I did this in high school. So just let me move on and go to university and try this. And while I was there, I was getting more serious about training. And like I said, I didn't know what I was doing, and we were training in the basement of that friend of mine. He was a 7-time Dutch champion javelin throwing. I think that's what you call it, the spear throwing. And he was close to getting to the Olympics also and his dad was always training him, and his dad, he had a lot of knowledge about training, and him also. And they saw that I was being really passionate about the sport, so they said, "Yeah, let me help you, give you a schedule." And still to this day, I use a lot of training techniques that they learned me when I was training there when I was 17, 18 years old. In that small basement gym that we used. So after a few months, I started getting really good at it. I started liking my physique. And I remember there was one time a little kid that also came to the gym. A little kid. I was also 18, but he was, I think, 16 or 15. And he was like, "Oh, I'm starting training right now. I want to be like you." And I was like, and he was asking me, what do I have to do in terms of training and diet? I said, I don't know, man. I said, I just started this. But he thought that I already looked very good. So I thought maybe, okay, for him it's good maybe, but maybe I just have good genetics and I should pursue this further. And I did. And that was at the time when I was getting was in university for engineering. So I thought I just completed it to get my degree, but I didn't like it anymore because my heart was drawn really to sports. So I decided for myself, I finished my degree in engineering, and then I go pursue another study. I went to do another study of diet and nutrition and sports nutrition. It was really focused on that because that's what I was doing. And that's when I really I was into fitness, and bodybuilding was starting to get more and more on my mind, because at the beginning I was just training to look a little better, but then I really aspired quickly to bodybuilding, and my friends didn't because they thought it was a little extreme, because they was just training for the girls and for just to look good. But I was starting my education in nutrition, and then I also started my first prep for my first competition, and that was when I was I think 20 years old or 21 years old. So I think it's good to go further on that a little bit, because that's why my real bodybuilding journey started. Really, I was in university to get my nutrition degree, and that's when I planned on doing my first competition. And after that, it just went further and further. If you want to get into that, I don't know. You have any questions further about my time before that, or shall we move on?
Yeah, I want to ask you before we move on, Siem, I want to ask you about that basement kind of gym that you started training at. And you said that a lot of the training techniques that you were taught right away are some of the same ones that you use to this day. So what were some of those training techniques, or what was the way that you were initially taught how to lift weights? And then what are some of those techniques or philosophies that you still utilize in your training as a professional bodybuilder?
Yes. That's interesting, of course. They were doing a lot of strength training. They were really focused on being stronger, not per se muscular, but they were muscular. But there was also another guy. He was how do you say that in English? The stone throwers. They throw the bullets, the big. I don't know how you call it. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And this guy was huge, and I always found him the coolest. But they were the biggest principle they taught me, and that's the principle that everybody knows, is progressive overload and basic compound movements, really. And they were really focused on us performing the exercises in a correct manner. So we weren't allowed to use one form or anything, and they were really say if we were doing it wrong, they would really let us know. So they were really focused on that, and the techniques in progressive overload. The only thing they had there was all basic stuff. They didn't have fancy equipment, so we had to learn how to squat really deep, do deadlifts, and I also had a period of time where I did the snatching above my head and the real Olympic lifts, because they were doing that to get better at spear throwing, I think, or at javelin throwing, because that's what they found that worked for them, and they really created their own style of strength training, yeah, focused on getting stronger mainly just to perform better at the Olympic sports that they were doing. But I was training kind of in that way, but I was growing a lot really. I was getting really big. I was getting a lot bigger than some of these guys that were way stronger than me. But I was training in the same way really. So I think it's, yeah, you have genetics for different kind of sports. I was never going to be an athletics person because I'm not built like that, like they were. And they were muscular, but I was getting way bigger than them. And just yeah, using the same training methods really. It wasn't really anything special, but it was just they taught us the basics very well, the basics of squatting, deadlifting, benching. Yeah, and you should have seen a picture of how the gym looked. It was just crazy. If you were there with 5 people, it was like crowded because you were just standing so close to each other because it was so small. But they were really focused on the few people that were training there. So I really learned to train in the right way right from the beginning. Because nowadays you see a lot of kids in the big commercial gyms, and if you see the way they train, it's just irresponsible, really. And it's just, yeah, they are not focused on form, but it's not their fault because nobody taught them. But at that place, yeah, they were really focused on us doing it right. So I think that's what mainly caused me to, yeah, that's what I mainly meant by the way, I was still training because of basic principles, but with correct form. And they always taught us form is the most important.
Absolutely. So, do you still incorporate, you know, like the barbell squat and the barbell bench and some of those old school basic movements, or have you transitioned to more machines? What does your current training kind of look like, Siem?
Currently, it has switched a little bit away from the compounds and more to the, yeah, it's a combination, I must say. I still do barbell back squats always, front squats also. Bench press, I like to incline more because flat bench, I had a couple of injuries because of that. I think it's, for me, it has always been the main exercise that causes injury. You know? Always strains and tears around my back, and never nothing serious, but all the minor injuries I've had were always because of bench pressing. And I found I didn't have that with incline. And I also, when I got my first coach in bodybuilding, they really showed me another way of training, which I liked, but I combined it a little bit with the compound movement. So I still do both. Really.
And so in terms of like your rep range, do you train, you know, in a lower rep range? Do you go really high? What type of volume do you use in terms of your training?
I like high volume training a lot more now. My rep range is always between 10 and 15. Some exercises it's even close to 20 reps. It depends really. If I do heavy squats, maybe I will go as low as 6 or 8. Never nothing below that. But if I'm training arms, for example, I would never go below 15 with any set. Just because I found for myself that it works the best when I train my arms with higher intensity, higher volume. I mean, high volume, not higher intensity. And more sets and less focused on the weight. With squats, I focus more on the weight, and I will do a little less volume because 20 reps of squats is pretty taxing. And I think you need some kind of mechanical tension to stimulate the muscle in a certain way that has to grow. But I found for myself it works very well on some muscles, on some muscle groups, on some exercises to go really heavy, but on other exercises it works the opposite really. I would just get more, if I, for example, with trying to do PRs with 6 reps on bicep curls, I would just get annoying pains in my tendons and not really any soreness or something. And for my triceps goes the same. While with squats it's completely different. So it really depends on the exercise, but mainly it's a little higher in volume, I would say. And unless it's a compound movement, then I'll focus a bit on strength, but also because I'm still a fan of that. I like training that way. So
very cool. So let's talk about your first competition. You said your first competition, you were about 20 or 21 years old.
Yes.
But before we do, I know those guys in the basement gym kind of taught you how to lift weights correctly and properly. Who kind of introduced you to bodybuilding? I mean, did you just see it through, you know, YouTube or through a magazine? How were you first introduced to actual stepping on stage, competing bodybuilding?
Yeah, so I think that will be a quite interesting story. started following bodybuilding a little bit when I was still training in that basement gym. But they weren't really focused on bodybuilding. Like I said, they were really Olympic lifters and really focused on that. So I don't think they have much with bodybuilding. They knew Arnold, of course, and they like big physiques, but that was about it. So they could not guide me in that sense to do a bodybuilding competition. But that gym, as much as I always liked it, I always trained there. They closed 2 weeks during the summer because the gym was in the basement of somebody's home. So he was like, yeah, I just don't want people around my floor for like 2 weeks in a year, which is understandable. So we were like, okay. But in the 2 weeks, I still wanted to train. And there was another gym around, and they had a few people there that did some amateur competitions, never nothing serious, I think, but they had a little bit with bodybuilding. So in that period of 2 weeks, I went over there to train. And the owner, he was like pushing me all the time. He said, hey, you should do a competition. You're built for this. It's really something you should try. And at first I had some doubts, but then I started doing some research about competition in the Netherlands and shows that they were holding here. And there was one event, I remember at the time, it was 2015. I was, at the time I was 21, I think, 20 or 20, I was 20 years old. I was back then. And it was a huge event. It had like a few thousand people in the weekend as visitors, and they had everything. They had bodybuilding, they had strong lifts, they had different sports. And I was like, oh, this looks really cool. Maybe I should just try it. And never thinking about being a pro bodybuilder or going as far as I would, but I'm always like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it 100%. And it was also with my first prep, even though I wasn't really sure about what I was doing. I was doing this prep by myself because I was studying nutrition at the time. I knew how to lose weight. I knew how to gain weight. I did a few cuts. I did a few bulks. So I was like, I just have to get myself in shape and try this competition. And that period of time, I have never been as focused again in my life as that. I was so focused on doing this competition right. So because I was putting so much effort in it, I was combining it with my study and I was getting the best grades, and I completely changed as a person because I went from being lazy and wanting to do nothing to do everything at my best. And if I didn't, I blame myself for it. I just wanted to be passionate about everything I was doing. I wanted to be the best at everything. So I started this prep, and after a few or 5 weeks, I really loved it. Really, I was doing cardio every day. I was riding my bike outside because we didn't have machine equipment in the gym. So it doesn't matter if I was raining, I was still riding my mountain bike outside doing cardio. I was also running, doing cardio, because I was like, running burns a lot of calories, because most bodybuilders won't run anymore because they will ruin their knees and their legs. But I was doing it at the time because I was a little lighter, of course. And I was so into prep, and then I came about, and I was looking really good too. People started seeing it and they started complimenting me, and I was really strict with my diet. I never cheated. I thought, you can't cheat. You just have to follow the diet every day. And I was just eating the same thing every day. And if I didn't lose weight, I was eating less. So I was getting a bit smaller, but I was getting really shredded. And at the time, I was doing an internship at physio. How do you call it? Physical therapy. People with injuries. And because I was studying, I didn't have a lot of money, so I bought this moped, this small moped Tomos bike. We were like at 4 weeks out from my first competition, and at that point, all I just thought about was bodybuilding and competing. And I just bought that thing because it would have saved me money, because I didn't have to buy gas for my car, and I could buy more food, and I could buy the supplements I needed, the protein shakes and all that stuff. So I came about 3.5 weeks before my first show. I was driving my moped to my internship, and I got hit by a car from the side. It was his fault. He came from the left, and I was the one that was in the right. But I crashed with, I don't know what it's in miles, but it was pretty hard. I just crashed right into the side of the car. And it was at 3 weeks out. So I crashed with my shoulder and my knee. I just went full in the car, and the car just had a crazy dent in it. It was crazy how hard I hit it. And at the time, I didn't feel anything, but the same day I went to the doctors, of course, and also to the hospital, and they checked out my shoulder and they checked out my knee. And in my knee, I had two tendons that were partially torn. And in my shoulder, I had how do you say it in English? My collarbone. It had dislocated itself from my shoulder cuff. How do you call it in English? It's an AC luxation. So the complete tendon is torn off the other end where it was supposed to be. So they took the photos and they said, yeah, it's a AC ligament torn and it's a type 3, and you can choose. We can put it back together. The risk is that you maybe cannot lift your arm any higher than that, or you can just leave it like that and hope that it recovers. But we are not sure. So I told him, fuck, I have a competition in 3 weeks. Can I still do this? And I was like, no, you can't. Yeah, it's not possible because my leg was messed up and also my shoulder and was on the same side. So I couldn't walk with crutches either because my shoulder was so messed up. So the most difficult part about that is they told me, I asked them, of course, will I be able to train again? Because, it looked pretty serious because you could see my collarbone. It stood like a centimeter up from my shoulder. He's like, yeah, I don't know, man. He said, I'm not sure, but you can choose. We can operate it or not. I said, yeah, but if you think it's a risk, I will not do it, of course. But he said it's also a risk if you don't do it. That maybe you're always going to be in pain and not be able to train right because it was not strong anymore. Because it just was loose on one end and still is. I could just move it up and down. So I was really going to a difficult time after that because the following 3 weeks that I was supposed to compete, I still wanted to finish my prep. Even if they said I couldn't, I was still determined to do it. Even if I couldn't train, I was just laying in bed all day because really I couldn't walk, I couldn't move with my shoulder either. I was still following my diet because I've been doing this for like 15 weeks, and I was like, I just don't want to give it up. And maybe it recovers fast enough, and I can miraculously still do the show. So I completed the final 3 weeks of prep, and that was really one of the toughest times of my life, I think, because in my head I was so busy with the fear of being not able to train again, because it was the thing I loved most. So I did finish the prep, and I did compete even, and I was standing on stage there and one leg was like the half of the size of the other leg because I couldn't bend it for 2 weeks. It has been straight for 2 weeks. One leg was still pretty muscular because I was humping on it, of course, and my other leg I just could put my finger. It was just like jelly, or the muscle was completely gone. So it looked kind of silly, but I was like, I was still shredded. I was still dropping weight. I have a fast metabolism too, and I was always lean for myself. So I thought, I am shredded, so let me just try this competition. And I was like, fuck it. And mentally, I wasn't, really being 100% as you could imagine, of course. And I could still do the poses a little bit. I was still in pain, but I could do them. So I competed there as a junior because the juniors was up until 22 years old. And this event was crazy. Donnie Yates was there, Cedric McMillan was guest posing there. So I was like, I just have to be there and have to, try my best. So I competed with the juniors at the lowest level. I think it was D class or something. And I took third place out of 14 people with a half leg and like one shoulder. I couldn't even barely move and do the poses right. And after the competition and during the competition, I just fell in love with it. I was like, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm made for. I was being there. I was working around the expo. I was meeting Cedric McMillan. I was meeting Donnie Yates. I was meeting a lot of unknown at the time unknown Dutch bodybuilders that I really looked up to. And I had the best time of my life really being there. It was also the weekend of my birthday, so that was like an ending of the 3 most difficult weeks I've had, and it had such a nice outcome. Even though I took third place, I wanted to win, of course, but I was like, if I can take third place with a half a leg and half a shoulder, maybe I can come back next year and do it again and make a rematch and show them what I'm really good at, because I knew I had the potential, but I couldn't show them. So the experience was amazing. I love bodybuilding right away. I was walking around the expo all weekend with my knee being so painful, but I didn't care. I had the time of my life. So that's when I said to myself, the event was every year in December. I said to myself, I'm going to train the whole year, another year, and come back, and I'm going to win the juniors. That was my life goal at the time. So that's what I did. After 1 or 2 months, my shoulder was getting better, and I wasn't feeling the pain anymore, really. My knee, it completely healed already by this time. So I was training legs like crazy because I could do that. And that was from 2015 December till 2016. I wanted to do that same competition because I had such an amazing time there. It was a great event, and it's too bad that they don't hold it anymore. But it was really the biggest bodybuilding event in all Netherlands, and people were coming from all over the world. So I took it as serious as anything, really, man. It was my life goal at the time to win that show in 2016, a year later. So I trained for it the whole year. my injuries went completely away. My training went better, my school went better, and everything went back to normal. And now, right now, I'm not even feeling the shoulder anymore. So I'm fully focused on training, and I was still prepping myself and still going through it because I liked it that way. I really liked doing my own thing and taking all the credit myself. And yeah, it just showed me that it was a sport that if I worked hard and I get the results, and it's completely on me. That's what I loved about it. So I trained the whole year, did my bulking period. I gained a lot of muscle, and I came back. The first year I was 81 kilos at the weigh-ins, and that year I wanted to compete around. I think I was a little under 90 kilos. I think 90 or 91 kilos, but I was still competing in the junior class because that was my class I wanted to win. I didn't aim for much else. Yeah, that's when things get really bad again. It really went downhill again. Just when I thought everything is going good, it got even worse, really. So I wanted to compete in the same competition. I finished my prep completely. I looked really good. I still have the pictures on my phone. I was 21 at the time, turning 22, and crazy physique, if I say so myself. But I had gyno, always had gyno since I was 11 or 12 years old. I always struggled with it. I went to the doctor already when I was 10 or 11 because it was hurting. I always had gyno. And of course, being a bodybuilder and doing the stuff we do for competition and everything, it's going to make it worse. But I still focused on keeping it as small as possible. But at the time in the Netherlands, there was a period from 2016 till 2017. They were so strict about gyno that if you showed up with gyno at the weigh-ins, they just made people take off their shirt. If you took off your shirt and they saw you had gyno, they just said you can't compete. And that was my biggest fear because they were coming with the emails already before the competition, and I was in prep, and they were saying that if you have gyno, you can compete. So I was doing everything to keep it as small as possible, and I could. You can always manipulate estrogen, of course, as people should, because you shouldn't let your estrogen get too high. But it would get smaller, but it wouldn't go completely away. It would always go back to that state it was since when I was like 11 or 12. So I came at the weigh-in, and it's like my worst nightmare. It became reality, and I took my shirt, and the guy was looking at me. He's like, "No, you can't compete." I said, "Why not? What's wrong?" It was because it was so small, you could barely see it. It was just looking really good at it. And I told him, this is bullshit, man. I said I had this all my life, and it's so small. Just please let me compete. I trained for this the whole year, really. And he was like, "Nah." They were really rough about it. He was like, "Nah, you should get it fixed. Take your responsibility. Fuck off." They was really being like that, and I was like, "Shit." I didn't mean for real, and that's what I was really, I didn't know what to do with it because I trained for it the whole year. There was my life goal, and it just got taken away like this. There was nothing left. So as determined as I was really down about it. I stayed there a weekend a little bit, walked around the expo, but it didn't feel the same because I saw the people on stage and I saw the person who won, and I was like, that could have been me because I was looking so good. Everything was going great, besides the stupid gyno that I couldn't even do nothing about it. So after that, I took my responsibility. I got it removed because I still wanted to compete, but I wasn't going to wait for the same competition again. I wanted to compete faster. I didn't want to wait another year. So that was the weekend of my birthday. So my birthday got completely ruined again for the second time, 2 years in a row. And that's my bodybuilding period. My bodybuilding career just started, and nothing has gone right for me. But still, I loved it. So I was like, I just get this gyno fixed, and the first competition that's happening, I'm doing it. So it was March 2017. They fixed my gyno. They took it away. Procedure also failed. I had internal bleedings after the surgery. So I had to stay in the hospital for like 2 weeks, and like the whole right side of my body was completely blue because of the internal bleedings. I was like, everything's going wrong with me. I don't think I'm meant to do this because nothing was going right from that point, as you understand. But yeah, after that, my gyno got fixed. It stayed away. I got healed, and you couldn't see nothing of it anymore. They did a great job, the doctor. They really helped me out good. So I had to recover for like 8 or 10 weeks, and I started training again. And I was at the time getting close to October, and that was the first competition that was held in the Netherlands. It was the Open Brabantse Kampioenschap. It was like a provincial show. So I went through the whole cycles again of bulking, cutting, and this time hoping 3 times is enough for me to succeed for once in my life in this bodybuilding journey. because if I failed one more time, I think I would have been done with it, because I had so many times where I was down and almost depressed about it because I couldn't do what I love because of things that weren't even in my control. And now everything was in my control, and I was like, nothing can stop me anymore. I'm just going to do this show and try to win it. So I went there still as a junior because I was 22 at the time, and it was pretty high level competition. And I took the juniors, I won that. Then I also did the light heavyweight class, and I got first place there. And then I went to the overall, and I also won the overall. So that was like one of the best moments, I think, in my bodybuilding career, because I was just having 2 years of nothing going right for me. Everything was always not in favor of my luck. I was always against the odds, brought down so many times. And when I won it, it was such a relief, because then I knew I didn't go to all the suffering and not be good enough, because it showed that I had the talent, that people were very positive about me then. And they was like, well, we never seen this as a junior coming here and winning everything. I was beating the heavyweight guy and the super heavyweight also. They said, man, you're really good, and please compete further. And that was the same people that the year before they said, told me to fuck off with my guy. No, but I was like, it didn't matter to me anymore. So after that, I went, that was like a beginner show. I went to novice show 2 weeks later. I also won my class there. I won the juniors, and I won the light heavyweight class. I didn't win the overall. Then went to somebody else, older and bigger guy. And the same year, I competed also in the Dutch Grand Prix, which was at the time the highest amateur competition in the Netherlands. And I took first place there at the juniors and third place with the light heavyweights. And that show, actually, Wesley Vessels won that. He was in that show. I think you know him. I was competing against him because I won the juniors, and he won the super heavies. So we won the overall together. And that was like the best year I've had, man. I won all the competitions, and I started to feeling good about it again. And I really liked that I finally could compete and show that I was good, and even competing against Wesley, because he was like, at the time, he was an icon for me. It was so special to stand there, and I was still a junior, and he was like maybe 20 kilos heavier than me. But we were standing in the same lineup in the overall, so I was like, this is great. So that made that really made my year good again. And 2017 was really the start of a lot of great things. And after that, everything just went better, and it really just went all uphill from there. Yeah, man. That was the upbringing, and after that, it just got a lot better. Yes.
So
it was a weird beginning.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, Siem. I'm really thankful that you shared a little bit about the struggle, because again, that's really the main focus for me on Behind the Muscle podcast. Is like, we see all the trophies, and we see the great pictures on Instagram. We kind of see all the highlights of people's lives through social media, and specifically bodybuilders. My goal is to kind of get behind the muscle and really get into the backstory. So I really appreciate you touching on that. Now, before we kind of get into some of the recent shows and things like that, I want to ask you, what is it specifically for you, Siem, that in terms of bodybuilding that you love so much? When you were going through all those struggles, why didn't you give up? What really just gets you excited, and what really turns on your love for bodybuilding for you personally, if that makes sense?
Yeah, of course. I completely understand what you mean. And it's also great that you said that, because it's Instagram and indeed, and on shows also, but it's also on shows in general. You see these perfect physiques on stage, but you can see what went on behind closed doors. Number two could have had the worst prep of his life, like me. They could have had 2 shitty years, and all people see is that you win. And yeah, it's cool. But in other sports, for example, if you will play soccer and you had a really good game, you played an awesome game, but you lost because the opponent was just better, people still would say, you played a great game, and we could see that, but you're just going to win because the competition was so tough. And in bodybuilding, it isn't there, because the only thing that matters is the final result, and that's that few minutes that you're on stage. And if that's not perfect, then it's nothing at all, really. It just isn't anything. So, and that's what I kind of liked about it. It was the challenge for me to push myself to the ultimate, really, just to peak for this one thing and the satisfaction I was getting from it. And that was the feeling I had after my first prep, even though I got into the accident and I had a really tough time. I still completed the prep against all odds, against all people saying, yeah, you can't do it, you shouldn't do it. I still had that tiny trophy of third place with the juniors. So I was like, that was really what made me feel good about it. That struggle and the work that you had to put in and the discipline and the mentality you had to have. You almost had to be crazy to do this. And that's why I loved it, I think. Yeah. Just because it's an all or nothing mentality, you know, and pushing yourself to the ultimate. And there's, in my opinion, nothing more extreme and more difficult to do than a complete bodybuilding prep. So I just really like the challenge, and I just like the feeling of completing it and feeling the honor that the feeling it gave me, the feeling of honor. Really, yes.
Cool. So during this time, when you started competing in bodybuilding and you're, you know, like the 2015, 2016, 2017, what were you doing, you know, to earn a living, to pay your bills, to get your supplements? What was your career, and is that what you're still doing up to this point?
Like I said, I was in a university for diet and nutrition, and in 2017, still 2018 also, and it was in 2019 until I graduated. So I was still with my parents, living with my parents till I was about 24, I think. And they really supported me with the sport. I was also working part-time in a gym where I did my internship. And I was just combining school and study and doing a little bit of coaching on the side, because I had the knowledge because of my education and also because of my experience in bodybuilding and prepping myself. I was helping a few people here and there, but I wasn't really making a lot of money, but I wasn't really spending it either. Well, yeah, you buy food, of course, and supplements, but that was about it. And the only thing I did was live for bodybuilding, and I wasn't spending money on any other things because they weren't important to me, really. I just wanted to do this, and I had enough money to do it, and I had enough time to do it. So I was like, I'm going to give it my all and hope something good comes out of it, which happened eventually. And I also was doing bouncing, like a typical bodybuilding job, bouncing at the door in the city right here, and concerts and all that. So I was really combining studying with part-time working and just making enough money to do what I love, really. And it was never money has not really ever been that important to me. I didn't need a lot of money. I just needed enough to do what I wanted to do, and that was fine with me. As long as I could focus on this thing that became my dream, and I was being a professional bodybuilder. So
perfect. So why don't you talk about, so I think we kind of left off in terms of you're competing about 2017. So why don't you finish out your contest history up to where you just won the overall at the William Bonac Classic.
Yes.
You know, I think it was just this past weekend, right?
Yeah, it was last Sunday. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm still a bit on a high of yeah, being the winner. I never expected that, but we'll get into that later. So
yeah. So why don't you pick up where you left off? So I think we left off in 2017. So talk about 2018, 2019. We all know what happened in 2020. COVID hit. Yeah. So just talk about 17, 18, 19, 20, and then we'll get into 2021 competing. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Perfect. So I finished my last competition, the one I was talking about, the Dutch Grand Prix. That was in December. That was the ending of the year, always. So I competed there, and after that, there was still the event that I did at my first show, the big event. They called it the Strength and Physique Cup, and it wasn't as big as it was the 2015 and 16, but it was still huge. So I was going there off a whim, and people were getting to know me a little bit because I was the young kid and bodybuilding that just won the C class, won the B class, won the A class, and competed against Wesley, which was very famous in the Netherlands at that time. So I just went to go to all the shows and started meeting people, and I just really love being at every bodybuilding show, and I love the experience. And even if there were amateur shows or amateur events, I really loved it, and that's where I met a really good friend of mine now, one of my best friends. That's Lorenzo Leeuwen. You know him? He's an IFBB Elite Pro. He's a really good bodybuilder, one of the best of the Netherlands, I think. And he was big at that time already, even though he is my age. So I met him at the event I was mentioning, the big event, Strength and Physique Cup. And I approached him and I said I want to continue competing. And also he knew me because I just competed in 2017 and I did very well. So he knew who I was, which I was like, whoa, shock. He remembers me. So I started talking to him there and I asked him, could you maybe help me a little bit in terms of coaching? Because I want to do the Arnold Classic Amateur next year, which was in Spain. Because I was still a junior for one more year. So I told him, and he had done the competition before, and he was like, I think he took first place at the juniors and second place at the light heavyweights or at the heavyweights. So he established himself already a lot further than I was. So I was like, I want to do the same competition as you, and the Arnold Classic Europe, which was an event similar like the Strength and Physique, but way bigger. So I was like, I have to be there because all the people are there, all the famous bodybuilders at the time were going there. And I really loved those events. And I was like, I'm going to compete there. So can you help me? And he was like, sure. So he coached me for 2018. And the show was in September, I think. Yeah, September 2018 was the Arnold Classic Europe. It was still, then that's when the IFBB and NPC were still together. They weren't separated yet because now you have the Elite Pro and everything, of course. So I did that and he prepped me for that show and I took, I went there and I got a little bit of bad luck again. I was like, oh shit, it's happening again. I went to the registration there and I was 23 at the time and juniors was up until including 23 years old. So I registered for juniors, but I also registered for the heavyweight class because I was getting a lot bigger. He coached me during an off season. I gained a lot of muscle. I went from being 87 kilos on stage to close to being 100 kilos on stage the next year. So I have a lot of my gains. Thankful about him because he's one of my best friends now. But at the time, he was, of course, my coach. And I wanted to compete in juniors, but I came to the registration and it was like, which was the worst nightmare in itself. The registration, it was like freaking 8 hours standing in line because there were so many athletes. But besides that, I came to the registration table and they told me you can't compete in juniors because you are too old. So I was like, that's weird because I turned 24 in December, so I was 23, and I said it says right here on the paper of your competition that juniors is up until including 23 years old. And they said, well, it's the year that you turn 23, you can compete as a junior, but the year that you turn 24, you cannot compete anymore. But my birthday is in December, so I got screwed over with like 3 weeks because if I was born 3 weeks later, I could still do the juniors, but now I couldn't because I turned 23 at the end of December the year before. So they said, yeah, but we can give you your money back and you can just go and do the heavyweight class, which was fucking stupid because I was 23 and those guys are way older than me, way bigger than me. But I was like, yeah, I'm here in Spain now. I flew there with my dad and my girlfriend, and I was like, I'm not going here for nothing, so I'm just going to compete with the heavyweights. So I did, and I took fourth place out of a lot of great bodybuilders. It was a really tough lineup because at that time the Arnold Classic Europe was like the biggest, highest amateur level competition. And I was also watching the juniors, of course, and I was like, shit, I could have probably won this, but I took fourth place at heavyweights, which still made me very proud because it was a good placing, and I still got a trophy because they gave it to the top 5. So all in all, it was a great experience, and I'm really thankful that I still got to do that at least. I got screwed over way harder because of my previous defense. So this was nothing. I was still having fun. So I still went on to compete again in the Netherlands and do the Dutch Grand Prix again because that was like the highest amateur competition that they hold here, and I still wanted to compete. And it was 8 weeks after the Arnold Classic, so it was in November. I went there and I took first place with the heavyweights. I was on an upper weight class higher, and I did juniors and also won that again because here I could still compete as a junior. The rules were a bit different, I think. So I won my weight class now against a lot of older guys that were competing, and it was the highest competition level in the Netherlands, and people were also coming from Belgium and Germany and some other countries. And that was in 2018. And that's at that time they were giving away one pro card, an elite pro card, to the overall winner. So I competed in the overall, being a heavyweight, and I lost the overall to the super heavyweight, which is Relison Maraya. Is a very good bodybuilder too, and he was a lot bigger than me. So it was only fair that he won. I didn't blame anything or something. I was just happy to win my class, and that was 2018. And then 2019, I pursued bodybuilding, of course. Still wanted to be an elite pro at the time, because the elite pro was very big in Europe before the NPC came in. And at that time, there weren't really NPC shows here. There maybe one or two in Portugal or something. That was the only. The other shows were all IFBB Elite Pro shows. And Lorenzo, of course, was an Elite Pro. And I was like, yeah, I want to compete with him because he was my friend, of course. And I wanted to be a step higher. So the only logical thing for me to do was to go to the Elite Pro. So I competed in 2019 in June in the summer. At the Diamond Cup. I don't know if you know the show. They used to hold it in all kinds of countries in Europe. It was a pretty high amateur level competition where they gave away 3 pro cards to the 3 best bodybuilders in the overall. So I did Diamond Cup in 2019 in June, and I won the overall there. I won the heavyweight class, and I also won the overall. And I was one of the 3 people that got the Elite Pro card. So that was really, at the time, that was my biggest goal. I was like, I'm a pro now, and even though it was Elite Pro, and of course it's nothing compared to the real pro league that I'm in now. It was my goal back then, and I accomplished it, and I was very happy, because the Diamond Cup was a pretty big show. It was a big deal. It wasn't something you could easily win. So that's when I started thinking, okay, maybe I'm really good, and that's when everybody started saying it, and that's when I gained a little bit more confidence to pursue it even further, and thinking maybe I can be one of the best in this Elite Pro and make some money with this, because I still had to earn a living. And I did one Elite Pro show, which was the Elite Pro Madrid. It was in October 2019, and I had a pretty bad prep. I was dieting for way too long, going way too deep. I wasn't feeling well. My body wasn't responding, and the shape I was in was really one of the worst shapes I've been, I think, in my whole career. But of course, you have everything booked. It's your first pro show, first pro show, and we had everything booked: the hotel and the trip to Spain, because it was in Madrid. I had to go to Spain again to compete, so I was like, I'm going to do it anyway. So I did it, and there was a lineup of, I think, 21 guys. It was a crazy big lineup, and there were some good names in it. I think you also know Michael Criso. He wasn't there, but there was a lot of other very known Elite Pro bodybuilders from Eastern Europe. So I competed there, and I took 10th place out of 21 people, and I was 24 at the time, so I was still very happy with it. I was like, okay, I don't even look my best, and I can still take top 10, so I'm just going to try it again next year. And that's the year that you mentioned, indeed, COVID came about. It was 2020. The year I initially wanted to compete in the Arnold Classic, Europe again, but then as an Elite Pro, because when I went to the event, I really loved the event. So I was like, if I can maybe one day compete here as a pro, that was my goal at the time. So that was 2020. Everything got cancelled really, so I didn't compete at all, because in March they got the lockdown in the Netherlands here up until July, and then in December everything got shut down again. So I didn't compete for all 2020. And I said to myself, next year maybe it will be better. It's still pretty shit, but it happened to turn out to be a little better. So 2021, I wanted to do the Arnold Classic in Spain as an Elite Pro, because I was still with Elite Pro. But NPC was getting a lot bigger in the Netherlands also after 2020, because they had a few shows in 2020, and in 2021 they had a few more shows planned. So I started prepping in June something this year. I've been prepping for like half a year already, so it's been a long journey. But I started my prep for the Arnold Classic Europe, competing as an Elite Pro, and then I said to myself, after that I'm going to try to go to the NPC, because a lot of the Elite Pro shows were in Eastern Europe, and they were very far away, and I wasn't seeing any future in being there, because I think the NPC and the IFBB was taking over slowly also here. So I was like, maybe I should get out and go to the NPC. So I said, I'm going to do the Arnold Classic, and after that I'm going to compete in the NPC. But then again, I decided to skip the Arnold Classic completely, because I said to myself, what's the point of me competing here one last time and probably not even winning? Because Criso and all those guys, they are not bad bodybuilders. They're really good. Elite Pro is no joke, but some competitors. So I ended up skipping the Arnold Classic and I just wanted to focus on the regional show because I had to start all over again at regionals because I never competed in the NPC before. And regionals was this year, October. I took the overall there at the regional show. Yeah, pretty convincingly, yeah, which people were expecting from me. And I had a kind of a tough prep because I was at the time already a bit known in the Netherlands, and people were saying, "Oh, Siem is going to the NPC, and he should be easy able to win this." And I wasn't in my best shape at that competition by far because I wasn't dry enough. I still took the overall, but I was feeling a lot of pressure on my shoulders. Like shit, I have to do this right because people are expecting a lot from me. And it turned out all fine. Mentally, I had some struggles with it. But it turned out fine. I won the overall there, and they said to me, "You have to compete at the Bonac Classic and the Ironman if you want." And that was the past weekend, of course. So I had to bitch over another 7 weeks of prep, which was good because I had to get a lot leaner. And I started working again with my coach that also helped me before. It wasn't Lorenzo, but it's Roel Henno. I'm not sure if you know him. He's a very good coach. In Belgium, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, one of the best really. He also has worked with Chris Tuttle and with the coach from Neil Hill. He also worked with him together. So he is really knowledgeable and he helped me for the Diamond Cup that I won in 2019. And after that, I skipped coaching a little bit. And then I asked his help again from the regional show up until the pro qualifier because the prep I had done on my own and I didn't really like it. Even though I have the knowledge to do this prep by myself, you always need an extra pair of eyes, I think, that can look at you objectively. Because I see myself in the mirror and I think, oh, I'm getting smaller, maybe I should eat more. Or I see myself getting, being still fat and I say, oh, I have to do more cardio and I have to eat less. So, mentally, you can make yourself a bit crazy. Even though you have the knowledge, you're gonna, how do you say that, sabotage yourself, with your own thoughts. So I asked his help for the final 8 or 9 weeks from the regional show up until the pro qualifier, and he really helped me very well. I got in the best shape of my life, easily the best shape of my life. It was way better than I ever been. And with that shape, I competed at the Ironman first. That was on Saturday, and then on Sunday was the William Bonac Classic, and it was also my birthday on Sunday. And I ended up winning, of course, which still feels a bit unreal because I didn't expect it. I never think that highly of myself. I know I'm symmetrical. I'm really good and aesthetically pleasing, and my proportion and all are very good. But I'm not a mass monster like some of these other guys. So I was like, this is a pro qualifier, and I wanted to win the show on Saturday, the Ironman, because they were giving away this sword. I have it. It was well, maybe I can show it to you. That was on the Saturday show. They gave away this big sword, and they always do that every year. There was the Ironman is competition that's a bit older already. They held it also. I competed also in it 2017 in the year I mentioned where I won the juniors. And I saw that sword, so I was like, oh, I want to have that sword. And it's one day before the Bodybuilding Classic, so I ended up doing that too. And I ended up winning the sword, and I was like super happy with it. So I was like, okay, this weekend it made my weekend already, my birthday weekend. I'm really ecstatic already, but I'm still going to compete in the Bodybuilding Classic and see how I fare up against these other guys. And really, there was like 2 Dutch bodybuilders in the show. It was me and Hamza. We were the only Dutch guys, and the rest there was all a lot of Germans, guys from Poland, Brazil, the Arab Emirates. They were coming from everywhere. So I was working backstage. Past Sunday, my lineup had only 4 guys in the heavyweights, and super heavyweights was like a lineup of 8 or 9 people, and these guys were all monsters. So I was like standing there, and I was like, okay, it's fine. I won yesterday, and I'll see what happens today. And I know I have somewhat of a chance to win my own class, and overall, I was never something I expected. It was only a dream, of course, to be an IFBB Pro, as it is for any bodybuilder, really. So. I ended up winning pretty convincingly, as the juries told me, and it was on my birthday, like I mentioned, and that made it even better. But after winning the heavyweight class, you after that have to go to the overall, of course. So after winning the heavyweight class, William Bonac himself, he was handing out the medals to all the winners, and he was like my idol. He, of course, still is one of the best bodybuilders in the world, and he's from my country. Well, not originally, but he is competing for Netherlands. So I already met him in the hallway a few hours before, and I said, "I'm competing in your show, and I'm doing it." He was like, "Yeah, good luck." And after that, I was seeing him again on stage, and I was like, "Yeah, I just met you in the hallway, and now you're giving me my first place in heavyweights," and that was really crazy. And he was like congratulating me, but in English, because all these guys were English, and I was talking back to him in Dutch. And he was like, "Oh, you're from here? You're actually a Dutch guy?" And I was like, "Yes, I'm born here, lived here all my life." He was like, "I want you to win the overall." So he started helping me, and he started giving me tips on posing. And he said, "Yeah, you have to pull the vacuum. You have to put your elbows forward." He was giving me all kinds of tips to because he wanted me to win. And he was standing with the promoter on the side when we were doing the overall pose down. And I heard him say about me, it's like, "Oh, from the side, it just looked nuts. The vacuum is just crazy. And if you don't give him this pro card, I don't know who should give it to." So I heard him say all these things. So I got really excited, and I was really going hard in the overall battle. And I had to pose down, and everybody was posing really hard. And I was pretty convinced that I would win against the light heavyweight, but the super heavyweight, it was huge. He was a bit taller than me also, and I think he weighed in around close to 120 kilos, and I was 101 kilos. So we had about a 15 or 20 kilo difference. He was a lot bigger. So we were posing the overall, and Bonac came saying next to me and said, "Yeah, you have to do this pose," and that was really, of course, one of the highlights of the day. And after that, they put us all back in the line because they were going to announce the winner. But I had told the speaker the day before, I said, "Tomorrow is my birthday, and you're going to sing for me," because the speaker is a Dutch guy, and I always laugh at him. It's Marvin Nagelbloem. He's also a Dutch bodybuilder back in the day. So I told him, "Yeah, you have to go and sing for me when I compete at Bonac tomorrow because it's my birthday." He was like, "Yeah, sure." So we were standing in the lineup, and they were about to announce the winner. And yeah, you know how people stand. They were nervous as fuck, of course, because there was going about a pro card. And everybody wanted to win it. The below the lightweight, the bantamweight, and the heavyweight, super heavyweight. Everybody wanted to win it. So we were standing in line, and the speaker was joking a bit about it. He was like, "I'm going to announce the winner now with the number." And I said, "No, I'm going to do it differently, actually." And then he started singing the Happy Birthday song, and I was like, "Shit, I'm the winner now!" And then my dad and my girlfriend in the back, they started jumping up and down backstage, and everybody screaming because the audience, it was all Dutch people, of course, and I was the only Dutch guy in the lineup, so they were going crazy for me, even though the theater couldn't be completely full because of COVID. But that was just a crazy moment, and I was like, "Shit, does this mean I won?" Because he started singing, and he's like, "Yeah, you're the winner." So I was like, "Shit, this is crazy." And I went forward, and of course, yeah, Bonac again, he handed me the pro card. He talked to me, and he had nothing but kind words to say, and it was really a dream come true for me at the time, because I worked all these years and I had all these struggles I told you about in the past, and yeah, now I'm standing here getting my pro card from one of my idols on my birthday, and it was just it was a lot for me. It still is, and I had the whole week to let it sink in, but I've been so busy with work and everything that I hadn't really taken the time. So tomorrow I'm going with my girlfriend for a day just to relax a little bit, but to come back to the show it was a dream come true. I cannot say anything else about it. It was crazy. Yeah. It still feels weird talking about it, but it's reality now, and I'm a pro now, and I'm as motivated as I've ever been, and if not so more. And yeah, I'm very excited about what the future holds, man. I'm curious to see, because I'm definitely gonna purchase this path even further, and yeah, I just want this to be my work, and I want to be a bodybuilder for a living. So I'm getting one step closer to that dream, and which I thought would initially never happen, and now sitting here with you. That's about it, really. Yeah, crazy.
Beautiful, man. And it is, I'm sure, very surreal and a little crazy. So talk about, we're going to wrap it up here shortly. We've been going for a little over an hour, Siem, but
Yeah, sure.
talk to me about what your future holds. Like what are you thinking about in terms of your next competition as an IFBB Pro?
I haven't made up my mind completely yet. Like I told you at the beginning, I'm a big fan of open bodybuilding, and I think it's for me it's the most exciting class there is in the IFBB. But I have to be realistic with myself. I'm not as big as those guys are at that level, and I can compete with them the size I am right now. But I just turned 27, so I'm still fairly young, still fairly new to the sport. So I thought to myself, maybe it is a possibility for me to compete in classic as a pro, because I could make the weight limit. My last show I was about a little more than 3 kilos above the weight cap, being a professional. So as an amateur, I could never do it. I was just way too heavy. But as a pro now, I can possibly do it. And a lot of people also told me you have a very aesthetic physique, and I think you could compete with the current guys in classic if you could just make the weight cap. So it's something for me. I'm having some doubts about trying that, getting down to the weight and trying a pro show as a classic bodybuilder and see how I fare up there, because I want to be among the best of the world, and I'm not sure if I have the genetics to be as big as some of the open guys. But yeah, you can know for sure until you try it, of course. But I have never been a mass monster at any show, and I've beaten a lot of guys just on symmetry and conditioning and proportion. So I think maybe classic is something I will try. If I will try it, I will try it this year and see how I do. My dream is, of course, to go to the Olympia, and like it is probably of every bodybuilder. And yeah, I just want to make a living out of bodybuilding, and I fear my chances are being a bit bigger in classic than open bodybuilding at the time. So I think I'm going to try to do classic next year, compete in a pro show somewhere in Europe, and hopefully qualify to go to the Olympia, because that's the ultimate dream, of course. If it does play out or it doesn't play out that way, I'm not sure if I eventually will purchase purchase open bodybuilding, but that's kind of the doubts I'm having in my mind right now, to answer your question.
Absolutely, it does. So, Siem, I want you. You've been bodybuilding for quite a few years now. You've turned pro in 2 different organizations, and there's going to be a lot of young people, kind of like you, when you first started out. Thankfully you had some people to teach you how to lift weights, and you were kind of trained, with a very strong foundation. What would you say to some of the younger listeners that are listening to this or watching this that maybe have an interest in bodybuilding, or they're just getting into bodybuilding? What words of wisdom or what words of encouragement would you speak to some of those younger viewers, some of those younger listeners today?
Yeah, what's the most important? I think I have always been very blessed that I've always been supported with my parents, because I go to a lot of shows and I compete with a lot of friends of mine and whose parents don't even care about their placing or don't even come to watch the show. And my dad has been to every show. It doesn't matter if I go overseas, it doesn't matter. He always goes with me. And my mom is also very supportive. And all my friends that I currently have are too. So I would suggest to the people that aspire to be a bodybuilder is don't listen to the negative people, because there are a lot of people that are going to try to talk you out of it. And those people can very well be your parents, because some parents don't want their child to be a bodybuilder, which is kind of understandable, because yeah, it's a sport and everything that comes with it. And there's not really a lot of money to be made if you're just competing and not doing anything else. So I would just suggest, stick to your own dreams, man. Do what you desire, what you want to do. Don't listen to people that are trying to talk you out of it, and just follow your heart, really. And don't think about the risk or the future too much, because I think that's what people do, and that's what people are taught to do a lot, is think about later. And they say, oh, why would you compete now and spend all your money on this competition? You have to buy a house later. You have to live by yourself. You have to get a job. You have to get a 9-to-5. You have to do this. They are steered in that direction a little bit. And if you feel in your heart that you want to be a bodybuilder, as much as people don't understand it, I would suggest this: keeping it day by day, do what you love, do it with passion. And if you do that, then only good things can come out of it. If you give it all, it doesn't matter what it is, you're probably going to get some good about it. And that's what I always thought. I always thought that it doesn't matter how shitty it is now, or it seems right now. If I give it my all, eventually something good will come out of it. So that's really, what I would suggest the people watching to do is just, stay close to yourself, follow your dreams, follow your heart, and do what you love every day. And if you give it your all, eventually good things are going to come. Definitely. Yeah.
Love it, man. So you brought up the word pressure, or you mentioned pressure earlier as you were talking about some of your competing. how do you handle pressure? And, you know, when you feel maybe a little anxious or a little overwhelmed because of pressure, because of maybe some of the positive or negative things people are saying about you, how do you mentally handle that? How do you deal with that so it's not overwhelming and it doesn't distract you or hinder you?
It's tough, man. It really it's the toughest thing in all bodybuilding for me. And I found that when I got a bit known in bodybuilding, only if only it was just in the Netherlands, or I got a bit more popular and people started, yeah, looking with me doing my prep. I found my first prep, I wasn't feeling no pressure at all from nobody because it was just me doing this on my own and nobody was watching with me. But as I mentioned, the first regional shows I did this year, I was pretty known already because I was an elite pro and I was one of the best in the Netherlands. So people were expecting a lot from me. So they were saying, "Oh, you should easily be able to win this." And that was the toughest thing for me, really, because I was like, "Well, what if I don't win this? What if I don't win this regional show?" And people think, "Well, maybe Siem isn't that good." And as we thought, and even though you shouldn't care what other people think, of course, but if these people are your coach and your friends and your parents and people you know from the industry, it kind of weighs on your shoulders. Consciously or unconsciously, even if you don't fully understand it yourself, it has some kind of impact on you indirectly. So how I dealt with it was, I don't know, man. How do you say it? Try to focus on this one thing and completing each day. And I had a few bad days, a few setbacks, but I always said to myself, from the moment I wake up till the moment I go to sleep, if I do everything right, I cannot blame myself for anything. And those people can think what they want, they can expect from me what they want. If I give it my all and it's not happening, it's not happening. It's nothing to blame for. The only thing I found difficult is that the moment you do slip up a little bit and yeah, you cheat some more, or you do something that's not in line with your perfect vision of this competition, is you're going to beat yourself up for it. And I would suggest people take it easy on yourself, because this is mentally one of the most challenging sport, if not the most challenging sport mentally there is in the world. So if you have a bad day and mentally you're not feeling very well and you want to be angry at yourself at it, I would suggest to try to shift your thoughts a little bit and focus on what's ahead of you, and focus on the cardio you have to do that day, focus on the food you have to eat that day, and on training you have to do that day. And if you do that for 2 or 3 days, you're going to forget the bad day again. But if you're going to keep it in the back of your head all the time, it's going to weigh on you, and you're going to slip up again. So that's what I would suggest. Just focus on the target you have ahead of you. Complete those, and don't beat yourself up if you make one minor mistake, man. Because if you do that, it can set you way back. And the pressure is something that can really end any prep. Because this year I was prepping with a lot of my friends, and a lot of them stopped because COVID in the Netherlands got bigger again, and they said, "Yeah, well, maybe they're going to cancel the competition." And mentally, that's challenging for you, because you're like, "Oh, I've been in prep for so long. I hope they don't cancel the show." So I think a lot of people dropped out because mentally they were so afraid that it was going to happen that they said, "Well, maybe it's better if I don't do it." In the end, maybe they regret it. I don't know, but that's my advice I would give. Just take on the task you have each day and focus on that. And I look forward, man. Don't look backwards all the time.
Excellent, man. I love those words that you just shared with us, Siem. So we're going to wrap it up here. I know that Animal is a part of your team. It's a sponsor of yours. Why don't you talk about how they reached out to you, and how did you become a sponsor, sponsored by Animal?
Yeah, it's Animal Europe. It's not as big and popular here as it is in the US, because I think with you guys it's like one of the main supplements companies, and here it's also of course among bodybuilders a very known brand, but not as popular as it is in the US. But the guy that was the manager for Universal, and this was back in 2018 already, well, where I didn't even establish myself yet as being a good bodybuilder. I was training at the gym doing my cardio, and this guy comes standing next to me, and I was like, "Shit, I'm doing my cardio. Who's going to talk to me again now?" You know how it goes in prep. So he's like, "I take off your AirPods." So I take him off, and he said, would you like to come visit by? I'm the athlete manager of Universal and Animal Europe, and we are located here, just an hour away. Would you like to come by sometime and discuss maybe a sponsorship? So he just came up to me randomly in the gym because one of the athletes from the Netherlands, Jasper, is a good friend of mine, he was sponsored by them, and he had advised him to take a look at my photos and check me out. And so I just happened to run into him that day at the gym. And I ended up going there a week later, and this was a week before the Dutch Grand Prix in 2018. And he said, "Yeah, well, I didn't have like 5,000 followers, and I wasn't a good bodybuilder at all. So I was like, what do you want to do for me? Is there anything I can get?" And I was getting a lot of stuff, and I was like, "This is crazy. I'm really thankful that you wanted to help me." And he really believed in me since the beginning. And that was Ferry. I want to mention him. He's not the athlete manager anymore, but he always believed in me from the beginning of my career, and he always said, "I want to sponsor you because I know one day you're going to be good and you're going to be helpful for us, for our company." So that's really how it went, and I stuck with them since 2018, and they always sponsored me, always helped me with my supplements and my clothing and travel expenses that I had. So I'm really grateful for that. I'm really grateful for any help from people you can have doing you following your dream. And I think you should always be thankful for that. And that's how it came about. I just went into him at the gym. Pretty simple and weird, but that's just how it went.
Perfect, Siem. So we're gonna wrap it up, Siem. So
yeah, sure.
I want to give you the opportunity to kind of share anything that you want to share with myself and the listeners of Behind the Muscle podcast before I kind of close it out. If you have any final thoughts, any final words, please share those with us. And then why don't you go ahead, also share your Instagram, any other sponsors or anybody else that you want to shout out. The floor is yours at this time. Okay.
Yeah, sure, man. Thanks. I want to thank you first for having me on this podcast. It's really the first podcast I do that is about myself. I have done one other podcast with a few Dutch people, but it was Weight My Physique. But this is really the first podcast, so I really appreciate you inviting me, and I was pretty excited for it, man, because I saw a lot of great people you actually interviewed. I was like, whoa, this is a big deal. Frank Louis, I think, David Henry, and some other, really world-class pros. So I'm really thankful for you inviting me at first. I also want to encourage the listeners and motivate them, inspire them. I think, like I said before, just follow your heart and do what you think is right. You only have one life, and don't worry too much about the future, man. I posted this in my Insta story the other day too, because I think people are just so busy with what's going to happen maybe in 5 years, or what's going to happen maybe in 10 years, or maybe in 1 year. And sad part about it is in 10 years you couldn't even be here anymore. In 5 years tomorrow could be your last day. As crazy as it is, that's reality. And the thoughts I had about that and finalizing it really is, you should just take it day by day and do every day, do the thing you love and pursue the dream you have. And if you don't, something can happen, and you can really regret not treating it like it is, because you're also worried about the future. So that's what I would say: follow your heart and take it day by day and do what you love. And that's all you can do, really, because that's the only thing you can influence, the day itself. I also want to thank, of course, Animal Europe for sponsoring me. I have also other sponsors, Protein Benelux, that was helping me with my tanning. Anouk from Bedazzled, for my posing trunks. They made the posing trunks for me. They also sponsor me. My coach, of course, Rolando. All my friends, family, my dad, my girlfriend. There's too many people. I always try to thank people, and then I'm like, shit, maybe I'm forgetting one, and they're gonna feel sorry about it. So I'm just gonna say it like this: thanks to everybody for always helping me. Thanks to you for having me on the podcast, and I hope the story is somewhat interesting for people, and they can take some positive message from it. That's my goal, really. And I also want to share that I have my own YouTube myself, where I make videos. They're all in the Dutch, so maybe I have to switch to English now, because the audience will be a lot broader, of course, if I do it that way. And I think my English is okay enough to do so. So I also have my own YouTube at Siem Goossens, IFBB Bodybuilder. Simple. I have some videos about my competitions and about nutrition and training. And I plan to let the YouTube channel go even further. My Instagram is Siem _Goossens. So I wouldn't spell it out for the American people. I think my name is going to be a problem, and in the future, when I'm competing, people are going to mess it up a lot of times. But no, it's just finally, I'm just grateful, man. Grateful to being able to do what I do, being healthy, being injury free, and just I'm able to pursue my passion. Would encourage everybody who has the possibility to do so to do it. Just follow your passion, man. If you're healthy and you can do it, just do it, man. Because there are a lot of people and they are sick or disabled or whatever that can't even do what they love, and here you are just letting it slide because I don't know, worries about the future or something like that. So that's the final message, really, man. I don't want to get too long-winded about it.
It's excellent, Siem, and you thanked me for coming on the podcast, and I just want to say welcome. You're very welcome, and thank you again. Okay.
Yeah, it's all right, and it's my pleasure. Really, I like doing this. So I hope you like me as a guest also. I hope you got some views from it, and maybe we'll meet again in the future or something. I don't know.
For sure. So all of you who are listening or watching another episode of Behind the Muscle podcast, I just want to say thank you to you. Siem's name is kind of difficult, especially for those of us over in the States. So if you don't know how to spell his name, if you want to connect with him on Instagram, you can go down into the show notes, whether that's on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. And I always put my guests' Instagram link there in the show notes. So if you want to connect with Siem on Instagram, just scroll down to the show notes and his Instagram link will be there. All you got to do is click it and it'll take you to Siem's Instagram. So listeners, those of you again watching on YouTube, again, thank you so much. If it wasn't for you, the podcast would not exist. A few things before I close us out here today, I would just ask of you, please, if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube. If you are listening to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform, if you're not on YouTube, make sure you go to Behind the Muscle podcast on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. If you are on YouTube and you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe button on YouTube. That's very important because I release all of these episodes of Behind the Muscle podcast on YouTube first, and then I distribute them to the other podcast platforms. So if you want to stay up on all of these current episodes of Behind the Muscle, make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. And then also, if you're on YouTube, hit the like button, go down into the comment section and leave a comment, leave some feedback. I always greatly appreciate your guys' thoughts, your comments, and your feedback for Behind the Muscle podcast. And then one last favor I'd ask of all of you, take this episode with Siem and share it on your Instagram stories. Make sure you tag Behind the Muscle, tag Siem, so that we know that you listened to this episode specifically and you found great value in Siem's episode of Behind the Muscle podcast. And then finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.
Perfect, man. Thanks.